For as long as we have stared into the night sky, there has been the quiet sense that something out there is moving toward us. Not the stars themselves, which burn unmoving to the naked eye, nor the planets, whose slow wanderings across the heavens were charted by the ancients. No, this is a deeper feeling, an intuition that the void between worlds is not empty, that visitors pass through, unnoticed, unless we happen to be watching at the right moment. Tonight, you and I step into that moment. Imagine standing on a windswept plain far from the cities, far from the chatter of human noise. Above you stretches the river of the cosmos, its strands of starlight weaving across the darkness in silvery arcs. The Milky Way arches high overhead, a reminder that our galaxy is not a static stage, but a moving ocean of stars, dust, and hidden travelers. Somewhere within that ocean, drifting on a path older than humanity itself, an object is on approach. It carries with it the silence of other suns, the memory of ancient formations, and perhaps a story we have not yet learned how to read. The universe is not still. Every moment, millions of fragments race through interstellar space, shards of long-dead planets, icy relics of forgotten systems, wanderers stripped from their orbits and cast adrift in the tide of the galaxy. Most will never be seen. Their journeys will last longer than the span of civilizations, longer even than the lifespans of stars. But every so often, one of these interstellar travelers threads the cosmic needle and crosses into our solar system, brushing past our planets, grazing our orbits, before disappearing again into the night. They come without warning. They leave without explanation. And in their brief passage, they force us to confront how little we truly know about the void beyond our star. Picture one of these objects now, streaking silently through the gulf of space. It has no engine, no sails, no guiding hand, at least none that we can prove. It drifts at tens of kilometers per second, faster than any human craft has ever flown, a fragment of elsewhere. We give it a designation, a name, numbers to track its course, but those are labels we invent. To the cosmos, it is nameless, indifferent. Yet still it comes, and our telescopes, our orbiters, our instruments, all strain to catch a glimpse before it vanishes again into memory. The first time humanity confirmed such a visitor, it was 2017. Astronomers glimpsed a cigar-shaped object tumbling through the sky. Faint, dim, leaving only a trail of questions. They called it Oumuamua. It was unlike anything in our catalogue, too fast to be native, too strange in its motion to fit neatly into the models of comets or asteroids. It passed quickly, uncatchable, and left behind only speculation. Then 2 years later, another interstellar traveler appeared, this one unmistakably a comet, with a tail of gas and dust and a chemical signature that reminded us of home. It too passed, leaving the solar system quieter, emptier, but forever changed. 2 visitors, 2 glimpses of other worlds. And then, silence again. But the silence never lasts. Now, as we turn our gaze once more toward the heavens, a third wanderer has crossed into our skies. It is larger than expected, stranger in its chemistry, and perhaps more precise in its path than chance would suggest. Its trajectory carries it not into the distant void, but through the very heart of our planetary neighborhood. Past Mars, past Venus, past Earth, even past Jupiter, an interstellar traveler threading a path that feels too deliberate, too aligned, too uncanny. We tell ourselves it is coincidence. We remind ourselves that the universe is vast and chance alone creates patterns. And yet, when official voices grow quiet, When institutions release only sterile notes and half-formed updates, the human imagination begins to wander. What if this is not coincidence at all? What if the visitor carries more than ice and dust from another star? What if it carries intent? This is where our story begins, not in certainty, but in silence, not in data, but in the gaps between data. A story told as much in what is left unsaid as in what is measured. A story that asks us to step carefully into mystery, to listen for the echoes between the signals, to notice the shadows that stretch between facts. If the cosmos has sent us a messenger, then perhaps the message is not written in words or signals, but in the strangeness of its presence itself. And so we watch, and so we wait. The night sky, for all its grandeur, does not reveal its secrets easily. Every comet, every asteroid, every streak of light has its own tale of birth and exile. Some were born near the frozen edges of our system, flung inward by the pull of distant giants. Others may be the shattered remnants of collisions, the debris of ancient wars between rocks and gravity. But an interstellar traveler, one of the very few ever seen, that is something else entirely. That is a fragment of another cradle, another sun, another set of worlds that may have burned or frozen long before our Earth drew its first breath. To study it is to peer into alien chemistry, to sample another star's leftovers, to glimpse what kinds of matter orbit suns we will never visit. It is as if a bottle had washed up on the shore of our cosmic island, carrying not a note, but the taste of another ocean. And yet, as this new traveler approaches, silence falls. The great institutions of exploration, so eager to trumpet every rover landing, every satellite photograph, suddenly step back. No live broadcasts, no triumphant headlines, just quiet bulletins tucked into obscure corners of official websites, numbers without context, observations without flourish. To some, this restraint is nothing more than science as usual, cautious, careful, unwilling to leap before the data is certain. To others, it feels like the hush that falls before a revelation too great or too dangerous to be spoken aloud. It is easy to forget how fragile our understanding truly is. We imagine the universe mapped, catalogued, tamed by charts and graphs. But the truth is simpler and stranger. Most of the cosmos remains uncharted, its motions inferred from flickers of light across detectors, its secrets hidden in wavelengths invisible to human eyes. Every new discovery is a crack in the wall of our certainty, a reminder that we live not in a universe explained, but in one barely glimpsed. And when something comes to us from outside, from beyond the sun's reach, from another star entirely, that crack widens and our imagination rushes in to fill it. The visitor approaches now, unseen by most, unannounced by the voices we expect to guide us. It threads between the planets like a silent needle, carrying with it the weight of millions of years and the questions we are afraid to ask. What does it mean for such an object to pass so close, so carefully, across our skies? Why do we find ourselves blind at the very moment we wish to see? And why, at the same time as the traveler's arrival, do whispers rise in other halls of power, far from telescopes, far from observatories? Is it all coincidence? Or is it something else? Something that lives in the silence between answers? In the coming hours, we will follow this traveler through its passage. We will listen to the fragments of data, the scattered reports, the whispers of observers, and the absence of announcements. We will trace its chemistry, its light, its path across the heavens, and in doing so we will confront not only the nature of the object itself, but the deeper question it represents. How much do we truly know about what moves in the darkness beyond our sun? And how much do we dare to imagine? The cosmos does not answer quickly. Its language is patience, its words written in the slow arc of orbits, the faint glow of dust, the silence of the void. To understand the message of the traveler, we must first be willing to listen, not just to the signals we receive, but to the quiet spaces between them. For it is in the gaps, in the shadows, in the silences, that the universe often speaks the loudest. And so our journey begins here at the threshold of silence, with a traveler from another star threading its way past Mars, past Venus, toward Earth and beyond. We do not yet know what it carries. We do not yet know what it means. But we are here to watch, to wonder, to wait.
Welcome. You are watching Whisper Science. Make sure to subscribe and join us for more amazing science content. Now, let's move back to the video.
The silence surrounding the visitor is louder than any announcement could ever be. Scientists know this, the public senses it, and those who watch the skies every night feel it most keenly. It is not that nothing is being said. Numbers are trickling out. Observations appear quietly in online archives, spectral measurements buried in databases that only specialists know how to read. But there is no story being told, no voice shaping the meaning of this event for the world. And into that vacuum pours speculation. Look closely at the path of the traveler. Its motion is not random. The heavens are full of rocks that swing wide, parabolas of ice and stone that skim the sun before being flung back to the dark. They come at angles, steep and unpredictable, as though hurled from the invisible reaches of the Oort cloud. Yet this wanderer from another star, slides in on a path that seems unnervingly precise. Its orbit lies almost flat along the plane of our solar system, as if it chose to join the planets on their endless racetrack. It does not dive in vertically like a thrown spear. It drifts in horizontally, as if merging into traffic. That coincidence alone unsettles astronomers, though few will admit it aloud. At first glance, its velocity is what you would expect from something that has traveled interstellar space for millions of years. It carries the speed of exile, the momentum of being cast out from a sun we will never know. But speed alone cannot explain why it passes so near to Mars, then threads by Venus, then brushes past Earth itself before curving toward Jupiter's domain. Chance allows for many possibilities, yet the mind resists believing that such precision is only luck. If 1 billion rocks wander the galaxy, perhaps 1 in a billion will take such a path. But the timing, the geometry, the sequence, it all feels too sharp to be dismissed. In astronomy, patterns are both essential and dangerous. The human mind is built to find meaning in constellations, to weave images between stars that are separated by thousands of light years. We connect dots whether they belong together or not. And so when an object appears to behave like a probe following a mission plan, encountering planet after planet, in a sequence we ourselves might design, the question emerges unbidden. Is this natural or is this deliberate? Most scientists recoil from that word, deliberate. It implies intent, agency, something beyond the ordinary mechanics of gravity and chemistry. Science demands restraint. It demands we begin with the mundane, test it, exhaust it, before even whispering the extraordinary. Yet history has shown that sometimes the extraordinary arrives uninvited, and when it does, silence only deepens the speculation. Imagine the traveler now, seen through the eyes of a lone observer on a hillside. A faint smear of light, barely brighter than the surrounding stars. Through a telescope, it becomes a point with a ghostly haze, a coma glowing against the black. It does not roar. It does not blaze across the sky like a meteor. It drifts, implacable, indifferent to the questions rising beneath it. That haze, what is it made of? Our instruments whisper an answer that only raises more questions. Instead of water vapor, the breath of most comets, this one exhales carbon dioxide in overwhelming quantities. 8 parts of it for every 1 part water. Dry ice in abundance, as though it carries the frozen memory of a star colder than our own. Why would it be so different? Perhaps it was born in a place where carbon dioxide snow was plentiful and water scarce. Perhaps buried beneath its surface, there is water after all, waiting for deeper sunlight to unlock it. Or perhaps, as some whisper, this chemical oddity is not a matter of chance at all, but a signature, an engineered fingerprint left to announce its strangeness. We do not know. We cannot yet know. All we can do is watch, and even that becomes impossible as the visitor slides toward the sun. For weeks, Earth will be blind. The geometry of the heavens conspires against us. The object passes too close to the sun in our skies, lost in the glare, invisible to the telescopes that hunger to follow it. The moment when it burns brightest, when its secrets might spill into space, will happen in silence. Only the orbiters circling Mars will have a view, their instruments catching fragments of spectra, fleeting shifts in brightness, faint hints of what unfolds in the furnace of sunlight. By the time Earth sees again, the moment will have passed. We will study the afterimage and wonder what we missed. And here, in the blindness, speculation thrives. Leaked images, real or fabricated, will circulate like wildfire. Claims of signals, of fragments, of sudden changes in trajectory will echo through the digital world. Some will be illusions, artifacts of noise mistaken for meaning. Some may be genuine anomalies, misunderstood in haste. Without clarity, the difference between the two will blur. And once blurred, it may never fully resolve. Meanwhile, beyond the realm of science, other gatherings occur. Meetings in quiet rooms, officials called together at unusual times, military brass summoned with little notice. Their agendas are never shared, their timing never explained. To most, they are unrelated to the sky. To others, the coincidence is too great to ignore. When power gathers in silence at the same moment the heavens send us a riddle, the human mind forges connection. We tell ourselves it cannot be chance, but perhaps it can. Perhaps it always has been. And yet, the doubt lingers. The story of this traveler is not written only in the stars, but also in the human response to it. The astronomers who whisper about its odd chemistry, the institutions that post data without context, careful not to ignite imaginations they cannot control, the amateurs who stay up through the night, stacking images, straining for detail, the conspiracy-minded who draw maps and see patterns of intent where perhaps none exist. Together, they weave a tapestry not only of what the object is, but what it means to us. For meaning is never simply observed. It is made, shaped, chosen, and when silence reigns, meaning becomes wild, untamed, prone to the gravity of fear and wonder alike. Now imagine the traveler at perihelion, unseen by most of Earth, bathed in sunlight more intense than it has felt for millions of years. Its surface cracks, gases vent in plumes, dust spills into a tail stretching millions of kilometers behind it. Perhaps it fragments, breaking into shards that scatter along its path. Perhaps it holds together, a stubborn seed from another star refusing to yield. We do not see it happen. We only wait. And when the glare fades, we look again and measure what has changed. In the gap between what we hope to witness and what we can actually record, mystery grows. And so the story continues, threading forward into uncertainty. The traveler will move on, past Venus, past Earth, leaving whispers in its wake. Its chemistry may challenge our models. Its orbit may test our assumptions. Its silence may unsettle our faith in clarity. But the most important question may not be about the object itself. The question may be about us, how we respond to what we cannot explain, how we fill the gaps when silence surrounds us, how we decide whether to reach for the ordinary or to wonder at the extraordinary. The visitor will not answer that question. It cannot. It carries only its own quiet truth written in ice and dust in the scars of its long journey across the galaxy. We are the ones who must choose how to read it. And perhaps in that choice, we reveal more about ourselves than about the traveler itself. The night sky waits, the object moves on, our story follows. The traveler does not slow. It does not pause. It carries on its path, unbothered by the questions that cling to it like dust in its wake. From a distance, it seems so small, just another faint blur against the endless star field. Yet in its smallness lies a weight far greater than its mass. For what it represents is not only the reality of its passage, but the possibility it forces us to confront. The chemistry of the object remains strange. Telescopes whisper in the infrared, their data translated into spectra, lines etched by light across detectors cooled to near absolute zero, and in those lines lies the story of what it exhales. Carbon dioxide in abundance, dwarfing the familiar signature of water. This imbalance is not what we expect. Our comets, the ones born in the frozen reaches of the Oort cloud, sing a different song. Water first, carbon second, carbon monoxide sometimes, but always water as the foundation. This traveler, however, seems to have been formed in a furnace or a cradle unlike our own. Its very breath tells us it is alien, not just in its origin but in its composition, as though it carries with it the recipe of a star system we will never touch. Scientists propose models, cautious as always. Perhaps the outer crust is layered with carbon dioxide ice, venting first as the sunlight warms it, while deeper water remains locked below. Perhaps as it swings past the sun, water will finally be freed, shifting the balance of the spectra. Or perhaps this is simply what it is, an object from a colder nursery where water was scarce and carbon reigned. Each explanation is plausible. Each is incomplete. And until the blackout ends, until Earth sees again, all remain speculation. Meanwhile, observers note flickers in its brightness, irregular pulses that suggest jets of gas erupting and fading as it rotates. Some describe it poetically, saying the traveler breathes as though alive, inhaling silence and exhaling light. In reality, these are natural processes. Gas pockets venting through cracks, dust lifted into space by the heat of a star. Yet the language we choose betrays our hunger for more. To call it breathing is to admit what we see feels more than mechanical. It feels uncanny. In this age, data spreads quickly, but meaning lags behind. Amateurs share images across forums, stacking photographs into luminous trails, pointing out faint structures that seem to bend toward the sun instead of away. They call them plumes, anti-tails, defying expectation. Astronomers explain geometry, projection, dust sheets seen edge on. Yet the explanation is quiet, technical, while the mystery travels faster. The human mind is drawn not to the patient note of geometry, but to the story of something wrong, something new, something hidden. Thus the visitor gathers not only dust, but myth, trailing legends across the networks of human conversation. In parallel, the institutions remain restrained. Updates arrive like drops of water from a reluctant spring. A technical note here, a preprint there, data points without narrative. To those who seek certainty, this silence feels deliberate, even suspicious. Why, they ask, would the agencies trumpet every landing, every rover selfie, yet fall quiet when the third interstellar traveler in human history crosses our skies? To scientists, the answer is simple. Caution, the fear of error, the need for extraordinary evidence. But to the public, to those who hunger for story, silence feels like withholding, and withholding feels like conspiracy. Consider what unfolds in the absence of explanation. In dark corners of discussion, some claim the traveler changes speed in ways not explained by outgassing. Others insist it was detected long before its official discovery, tracked in secret until the story could no longer be contained. Still others point to its trajectory, Mars, Venus, Earth, Jupiter, as though it were a planned tour, a survey mission written by unseen hands. None of these claims carry evidence, only speculation. But speculation is a wildfire, and silence is dry grass. Together, they ignite. Meanwhile, beyond the realm of public imagination, meetings occur. At bases and headquarters, officials gather, their agendas unrevealed. Could it be coincidence that such gatherings coincide with the traveler's approach? Almost certainly. But coincidence does not extinguish suspicion. It feeds it. The human mind sees timing as meaning, and when timing aligns with mystery, meaning multiplies. Now imagine yourself in orbit above Mars. Instruments aboard silent spacecraft turn their gaze from the red planet to the faint smudge drifting across the darkness. Spectrometers measure, cameras capture, data streams into memory banks, waiting for transmission back to Earth. Mars becomes our outpost, our only eyes during the blind weeks of solar glare. Every bit of information they gather will matter. For when Earth wakes to see again, we will hunger for answers to fill the silence we endured. And yet, no matter how much data we collect, some questions cannot be answered by instruments. Was this path chosen? Or was it chance? Did it carry intent? Or is it nothing more than a fragment of another system, tumbling blindly through space? Such questions live not in the realm of measurement, but in the space between evidence and interpretation. The traveler will never answer them. We are left to answer them ourselves. This is the paradox of cosmic visitors. They remind us both of how vast the universe is and how little we know of it. Each one could be nothing more than rock and ice, and yet each one carries the weight of possibility. For if something ever did come from beyond, if ever there were a messenger, it would come not in the blaze of fire or the thunder of engines, but as this, quiet, drifting, unnoticed until it was upon us. That is the unsettling truth. That is why the silence feels heavier than words. The traveler passes on. Its path carries it forward, inexorable, indifferent. It does not turn toward us. It does not slow. It does not signal. Or if it does, we have not yet learned how to listen. Perhaps its signal is the very strangeness of its chemistry. Perhaps its message is the unease it provokes. Or perhaps it is nothing at all, a shard of another world that means nothing beyond itself. And yet, we cannot help but wonder. We cannot help but tell stories, whisper possibilities, ask what if. What if the path is deliberate? What if the silence is not caution, but fear? What if the object is not only a fragment of another world, but something sent? These questions bloom in the absence of certainty, and once born they do not easily die. The cosmos is vast, the traveler is small, but the meaning we attach to it is enormous. It stretches across science and speculation, across wonder and fear, across silence and story. And as it passes, it leaves behind not only a trail of dust and gas, but a mirror, reflecting back at us the way we confront mystery. Do we retreat into the safety of numbers alone? Do we leap into the arms of extraordinary claims, or do we linger in the silence, listening, waiting, accepting that sometimes the questions themselves are the only answer we will receive? And so, the story unfolds further, carrying us onward with the traveler, deeper into the unknown. The sky has always been both a map and a mirror. For as long as we have looked upward, the heavens have charted our journeys, told our myths, carried our fears. And now, as a traveler from another star threads its path through our system, the sky once again becomes a canvas for both science and story. The object itself is unchanged by our watching. It does not care if we name it, measure it, or doubt it. But we, down here on our small world, are transformed by the act of observing. What we see is not just an object in motion. It is a question, painted across the night. Watch closely as the trajectory unfolds. It is not a straight plunge into the heart of the sun, as many comets attempt before disintegrating in a blaze of dust. Nor is it a wide, lazy arc that barely brushes our system. Instead, it glides almost flat across the solar stage, aligning eerily close to the plane of the planets. One by one, its course carries it near the great actors of our neighborhood: Mars, Venus, Earth, Jupiter. To astronomers, this is an orbit like any other, plotted with equations explained by geometry. But to the human imagination, it feels choreographed, as if the visitor were a dancer stepping deliberately through a sequence of partners. Consider the view from Mars. On the third day of October, the object sweeps by at a distance that in cosmic terms feels like a handshake. 30 million kilometers, far enough to pose no danger, close enough to glimpse detail. Instruments orbiting Mars turn outward, away from the rust-red world they were built to study, and toward the pale wanderer crossing the void. For those brief days, Mars becomes our outpost, our relay, our listening station at the edge of silence. What they see, what they record, will shape our understanding. And yet, as data trickles back, institutions remain measured, restrained, unwilling to frame what they see as anything more than numbers. Beyond Mars, the traveler curves inward, toward Venus, toward Earth. Its path will not bring it crashing into us. That much is certain. It will sweep past, distant, but close enough to remind us that we are part of its story, however briefly. On December nights, it will pass within reach of our instruments again, faint against the stars, carrying with it whatever changes the sun has burned into its surface. Will it be intact or fractured into shards? Will its chemistry remain strange, or will new gases bloom from beneath its crust? The answers wait in the darkness, and for now all we have is speculation. But speculation is powerful. It fills the vacuum left by silence. Already voices rise to suggest that this path is too deliberate to be coincidence. They point to the sequence: Mars, Venus, Earth, Jupiter, as though it were a survey mission, a trajectory planned not by chance, but by design. Scientists counter with probability. In an infinite universe, unlikely paths are still inevitable. Yet the human mind does not rest easily on probability. We want reasons, intentions, stories. When chance aligns with pattern, we feel the tug of meaning. And meaning once felt cannot easily be dismissed. Step back and imagine the traveler not as a fragment of ice and rock, but as an emissary. If we were to send probes to another star system, what would they look like to distant observers? They would not blaze with signals that anyone could hear. They would not shine like beacons across the galaxy. They would be small, silent, indistinguishable from debris, unless someone happened to look closely and notice something strange in their chemistry, something peculiar in their path. Is it so strange that some now whisper the same of this visitor? that perhaps what we see is not only what it is, but what it was meant to be seen as. And yet, science remains cautious. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence, and evidence is slow to gather. The instruments aboard Mars orbiters will capture spectra, yes, but not photographs sharp enough to resolve a nucleus. They will measure gases, yes, but not intentions. The traveler reveals only fragments, and fragments are not enough to build certainty. So the institutions wait, and in their waiting, the silence deepens. During that silence, others speak louder. Amateurs release images, raw and imperfect, yet carrying the thrill of immediacy. Some show plumes pointing the wrong way, tails bending toward the sun. Some capture flickers in brightness that hint at outbursts, jets, eruptions. Some misinterpret noise as structure, artifacts as anomalies. But the public does not care about calibration or error bars. What they see is mystery, and mystery spreads. On forums, in videos, across headlines crafted to catch the eye, the visitor becomes not just a comet, not just a wanderer, but something more, something uncanny, something that invites us to ask forbidden questions. And in that act of asking, we reveal ourselves. We reveal our hunger for story, our fear of silence, our reluctance to accept the universe as indifferent. For perhaps what unsettles us most is not the possibility that the traveler is deliberate, but the possibility that it is not, that it is simply a shard of elsewhere, passing through without care or notice, indifferent to the eyes turned toward it. In that indifference lies the truth of the cosmos, vast, ancient, and unconcerned with our small stories. And yet, we cannot help but weave those stories anyway. As the blackout deepens, as Earth loses its view to the glare of the sun, the traveler slips from sight. For weeks we are blind. We do not know if it fractures or endures, brightens or fades, exhales water or remains locked in carbon ice. We do not know if its rotation quickens, if its fragments scatter, if its course shifts ever so slightly under the push of unseen jets. All we can do is wait. Waiting has always been the hardest part for our species. We are not patient creatures. We crave immediacy, certainty, answers. The universe offers us none of these. It offers only silence and the promise of revelation later if we can endure the not knowing. When the glare fades, when December comes, our instruments will turn once more. Hubble, Webb, the great observatories on Earth, each will hunt for the faint trace of the traveler against the winter sky. What will we find? A nucleus intact, trailing a long, thin tail. A cloud of fragments shimmering where once there was one. A chemistry changed, richer now in water, stranger still in other gases. Whatever we see, it will tell us not only about the object itself, but about the environment in which it was born. For every interstellar traveler is a messenger, carrying with it the frozen record of a world we will never visit. And yet, perhaps the most important message is not in its data at all. Perhaps it is in the silence that surrounded it, the stories we told while we waited, the way we filled the gap with speculation and wonder. Perhaps the traveler teaches us not only about alien chemistry, but about human imagination, how it leaps, how it fears, how it refuses to be contained by silence. The object moves on. It does not linger. By next spring it will be gone, swept back into the vast dark, never to return. And we will be left with what it left behind: data points, spectra, images, debates, stories. Some will call it nothing more than a comet, unusual in its chemistry but natural nonetheless. Others will hold fast to the possibility of more, unwilling to let go of the pattern they saw in its path. And perhaps both are true in their own way. Perhaps the object is natural, and the story we built around it is just as real. For stories shape how we see, how we imagine, how we prepare for the next traveler. Because there will be a next. Somewhere out there, even now, other wanderers drift between the stars, carrying the debris of other worlds, the dust of other suns. Some will never pass near us, some will. And when they do, we will face the same silence, the same waiting, the same hunger to fill the gap with meaning. Each one will be a mirror, showing us not only the cosmos but ourselves. The traveler does not speak, but in its silence it invites us to listen, not only to the sky but to the stories we tell in response. And perhaps in the end, that is its message. Not a signal encoded in radio waves, not an artifact hidden in its structure, but the reflection it casts back upon us. That we are a species desperate for meaning, unwilling to accept the void as empty, always searching the silence for a voice. The journey continues. The traveler has now passed through the veil of the sun's glare, the moment of blindness that left Earth unable to see. For weeks we waited, wondering what was happening in the furnace of perihelion. Did the object fracture? Did its chemistry shift? Did it remain stubbornly intact, unchanged by the star that warms us all? The silence has been heavy, filled with speculation, filled with hope and unease. Now, as Earth's telescopes finally regain their view, the story continues. When light returns, there is always a shock. Even if the object remains, even if its path is unchanged, we do not see it the same way as before. The blackout has transformed our perception. Imagination has filled the gap, and now reality must either confirm or deny what we invented. Some observers will see what they expect. A comet behaving like a comet, venting gases, shedding dust, drifting outward into the cold. Others will see what they feared or hoped, fragments, anomalies, signals in the noise. And in between these extremes lies the truth, waiting to be disentangled from both speculation and desire. Astronomers measure carefully. They compare positions before and after perihelion, searching for the faintest deviations in the orbit. If the trajectory has shifted more than expected, if the acceleration does not match the jets we can see, then something is strange. If the chemistry has changed, if water suddenly dominates where once there was only carbon dioxide, that too is strange, though in a more natural way. Each possibility tells a different story. But stories are never written in a single observation. They are written in the accumulation of detail, in the careful weaving together of fragments, and fragments are all we ever truly have. Still, the path itself lingers in our imagination. Mars, Venus, Earth, Jupiter, a sequence that feels too clean, too deliberate. The rational mind whispers of probability and geometry. The imaginative mind whispers of design. And in that tension, the traveler becomes more than an object. It becomes a test of our ability to live with uncertainty, to resist the easy lure of conclusions, to sit in the silence without forcing it to speak. That is not an easy test for us. We are creatures who crave answers. The cosmos, however, is under no obligation to provide them. Meanwhile, the human response continues to diverge. On one hand, there are the amateurs, the quiet watchers, stacking images night after night, building light curves, hunting for patterns. They become the front lines of observation, sharing their data freely, connecting across continents, piecing together the puzzle in real time. On the other hand, there are the voices of certainty, claiming more than the data can support, feeding the hunger for drama. One claims the traveler slowed deliberately. Another insists its composition proves it was engineered. Another sees in its orbit a message, a warning, a signal written not in light but in geometry. None of these claims stand on solid ground, yet they spread faster than the cautious words of scientists, because certainty, even false certainty, travels farther than careful doubt. And in the halls of institutions, the silence remains measured. Data is shared, but cautiously, slowly in pieces. Spectra published as preprints, orbital models updated quietly, technical notes released without fanfare. It is not suppression, not in the sinister sense, but it feels like suppression nonetheless. The lack of narrative leaves space for imagination, and imagination is relentless. In that vacuum, the traveler is transformed again and again, from comet to probe, from fragment of another sun to messenger of another mind. Each version says less about the object and more about us. Imagine now that you are standing under a winter sky, far from city lights. The air is cold, the stars sharp and bright. You know the traveler is out there, faint, distant, yet still within reach of telescopes. You cannot see it with your eyes, but you know it passes. Somewhere above, in silence, it drifts across the dark, carrying with it the chemistry of another world, the memory of another star. You whisper to yourself, what does it mean that such things come to us uninvited, unannounced? What does it mean that the universe occasionally sends us reminders that we are not isolated, that the galaxy is full of fragments crossing paths? And most unsettling of all, what does it mean that we do not know if we will ever fully understand them? The traveler will not slow, it will not stop. It does not wait for us to understand. Already it curves outward, away from the sun, outbound into the deep. Soon it will pass Jupiter, another giant in its path. Observers will hope for another glimpse, another chance to measure. But each day takes it farther from us, fainter, harder to see. The window closes as quickly as it opened, and in its wake we are left with the data we gathered and the stories we told. Perhaps that is the true lesson of interstellar visitors. Not that they carry answers, but that they carry questions. They remind us of our hunger, of our impatience, of our tendency to see patterns and purpose where there may be none. They remind us that science is not just about discovery, but about restraint. The discipline to say we do not know and mean it. They remind us that wonder is not diminished by doubt, but deepened by it. For to stand in the presence of the unknown and admit our ignorance is not weakness. It is the essence of being human. The object recedes, its coma fades, its tail thins, its light weakens. Soon it will be just another faint line in the archives, one more set of numbers among thousands. And yet, it will remain more than that. Because while it passed, we looked, we wondered, we asked. And in that asking, we were changed. The sky is not empty, the galaxy is not silent. Visitors will come again, some faint, some bright, each carrying its own fragment of mystery. Most will pass unnoticed. Some will ignite our imagination. A few may force us to question everything we thought we knew, but all will remind us that the universe is alive with motion, alive with fragments of other worlds, alive with stories we are only just beginning to hear. The traveler has moved on, but its silence still speaks. The traveler moves outward now, away from the sun that burned it, away from the planets it brushed past. Its course is still fast, still unrelenting, but in another sense it feels slower. The urgency that surrounded its arrival begins to soften as distance grows, and yet in its wake the questions remain more tangled than before. For even as it fades, it leaves us with mysteries unresolved, silences unbroken, fragments that refuse to fit neatly into the stories we want them to tell. Look at what we have learned. The chemistry remains strange. The dominance of carbon dioxide, the subdued presence of water. The irregular flickers of brightness that hint at hidden reservoirs and sudden outbursts. Nothing about it fits easily into the catalogue of comets we know. And yet nothing about it proves the extraordinary either. It is as though the object has placed itself at the edge of our understanding, not beyond it, but just far enough that we cannot decide. Natural or not, ordinary or uncanny, it drifts in the liminal space where possibility thrives. This in-between state unsettles us. If it were easily explained, we would marvel for a moment and then move on. If it were undeniably alien, undeniably artificial, we would be thrust into a new era, a new story of ourselves and our place in the cosmos. But caught between it lingers unresolved, and we are forced to sit with uncertainty. And uncertainty is something our species has never loved. We are creatures who want to know, to name, to categorize. To say we do not know feels like failure. Yet perhaps it is the truest statement we can make. Consider how the silence of institutions has shaped this story. From the beginning, updates came not with excitement but with restraint. Dry bulletins, data tables, preprints scattered across archives. No live broadcasts, no public countdowns, no sense of spectacle. To some, this restraint was wisdom. An acknowledgement that data takes time, that hype misleads, that caution protects science from error. To others, it felt like suppression, like someone hiding a truth too great or too terrible to reveal. And once the seed of suspicion is planted, it grows in the shadows, fed by coincidence, watered by silence, until it becomes something uncontainable. In the weeks of blackout, when Earth could not see, the narratives multiplied. Some whispered that it fractured, that pieces of it were falling toward the sun or toward Mars. Some insisted it had changed its path, as though guided by an unseen hand. Others claimed signals had been detected, faint transmissions carried on radio waves, hushed by those who feared panic. None of these claims held evidence, yet they spread faster than the careful truth. And by the time Earth saw again, the stories were already alive, entwined with the object's reality, impossible to untangle. Now, as telescopes reacquire the faint smear of light in the December skies, the truth is quieter than the rumors. The object remains. It has not shattered into dozens of fragments. It has not altered course in defiance of physics. It glows faintly, exhales gas, stretches a tail behind it just as comets do. And yet, the strangeness persists. The chemistry is still unbalanced, the orbit still unsettlingly aligned with the plane of planets. The flickers of brightness still irregular, still unexplained. The traveler gives us just enough to doubt, just enough to wonder, just enough to keep the questions alive. And so the paradox deepens. We are told it is natural, but shown details that feel otherwise. We are told it poses no threat, but reminded of meetings held in silence at the same time as its approach. We are told to wait for peer review, for careful confirmation, but confronted with the speed at which speculation spreads. The traveler itself is silent, but the story it leaves is deafening. What then is its meaning? Perhaps none. Perhaps it is only what it is, a shard of another world flung across the galaxy by chance, passing through our system without intent. If so, its meaning is what we give it, not what it carries. It is a reminder that we are not alone in the galaxy, not in the sense of company, but in the sense of debris, fragments, echoes. We are surrounded by the remnants of other suns, other systems, other worlds. And every so often, one of those remnants passes close enough for us to see. That alone is meaning enough. But perhaps its meaning is deeper. Perhaps it is a rehearsal, a prelude, a hint of something to come. If fragments pass, why not probes? If debris crosses our skies, why not emissaries? If chance can bring us chemistry so strange, why not intention one day? The traveler does not prove this possibility, but it keeps it alive. It whispers that the cosmos is larger than we imagine, and that our imagination is not large enough. Meanwhile, the object drifts outward, toward Jupiter's realm. There the giant waits, its gravity strong, its presence ancient. The traveler will not collide, will not be captured, but even a distant past feels significant. For Jupiter has always been the guardian, the shield that deflects comets and asteroids, the giant that shapes the architecture of our system. To pass near Jupiter is to acknowledge its power, even if only in silence. And so, in the coming spring, the traveler will brush past and then it will be gone, outbound forever, fading into the interstellar dark. We will never see it again. Once it passes, it will carry our questions with it, unanswered. We will archive its spectra, its orbital data, its faint images. We will publish papers, argue over anomalies, debate its meaning. But the object itself will be gone, unreachable, unrepeatable. Like Oumuamua before it, like Borisov before it, it will live only in memory and data. Another reminder that the universe does not perform for us, does not wait for us, does not return once it has passed. We must catch what we can in the moment and live with what we missed. And yet there is comfort in knowing there will be others. The galaxy is full of wanderers, fragments of other worlds cast adrift. Somewhere even now, another traveler is already inbound, invisible to us, months or years away from discovery. Perhaps it will be ordinary, a comet like any other. Perhaps it will be stranger still, more unsettling, more ambiguous. Perhaps one day we will see not just debris but design. But until then we live in waiting, knowing that the sky will not always be silent. The traveler continues outward. Its silence remains, and in that silence we hear ourselves, the questions we ask, the fears we confess, the wonder we cannot silence. The object may be leaving, but the story it awakened will linger long after it has gone. The traveler drifts toward the domain of giants. Out here, past the inner worlds and their fragile atmospheres, the scale of the solar system becomes overwhelming. Jupiter waits ahead, a planet so massive it holds more than twice the material of all the others combined. Its storms have raged for centuries. Its gravity sculpts the paths of comets and asteroids. Its presence alone shapes the balance of the entire system. For most visitors, Jupiter is the end of the road. It deflects them outward, captures them into long orbits, or tears them apart with its tides. To pass near Jupiter is to enter the court of a king that does not forgive weakness. And yet, the traveler does not flinch. It does not alter course. It slides onward, indifferent, a shard from another world gliding through the pull of the giant, as though it knows this path was always its destiny. Its orbit has been mapped, its trajectory calculated, and yet there is something about its calm passage that unsettles. It feels deliberate, as though the traveler knows what it is doing. Rationally, we know this cannot be true. It is only mass and velocity, gravity and sunlight. But in the silence, in the mystery, the mind begins to whisper otherwise. Astronomers prepare their instruments. Telescopes tuned to the faint glow of reflected sunlight strain to capture detail before the traveler fades into distance. Spectrometers hope for one more chance to taste its chemistry, to see whether the strange balance of carbon and water has changed in the months since it passed the sun. Radar arrays reach out, bouncing signals into the void, hoping to trace the contours of its nucleus. Most will return with only silence, the object too small, too distant, too faint. But even silence is data, and data is all we will ever have. Consider the strangeness of this moment. In all of human history, only 3 interstellar travelers have been confirmed. 2 in the past decade and now this one. 3 fragments, 3 chances to glimpse other worlds, 3 reminders of how much lies beyond our sun. For centuries we wondered whether the galaxy was alive with planets, whether other stars bore systems like our own. Now we know they do, for their debris drifts through us. Each traveler is proof that other suns have families of worlds, and that those families shed fragments into the dark. But proof does not satisfy curiosity. We do not just want to know that other worlds exist. We want to touch them, to read their chemistry, to feel their presence. These travelers are as close as we will ever come. Bottles washed ashore from oceans we cannot cross. And yet we are unprepared. Each time the object comes suddenly, discovered only as it is already inbound. We scramble to aim our instruments, to capture what fragments of data we can, but the moment is always fleeting. By the time we are ready, the visitor is already leaving. We are like listeners catching only the last echo of a song already sung. And in that echo we hear only hints, never the full melody. The traveler approaches Jupiter now, and the giant exerts its influence. Its gravity bends the path, but only slightly. The object does not spiral inward, does not shatter into arcs of debris. It sails past, and for a brief window, telescopes on Earth and orbiters in the outer system may glimpse it again, brighter for a moment against the background of stars. That moment will be precious, for beyond Jupiter the darkness grows deep, and soon the traveler will fade forever. Some say this is the most dangerous part of its journey, not because of impact, but because of the questions it raises. If the traveler truly were deliberate, if it truly were more than debris, what better vantage could it choose than here? From this position, it can see the giants and the small worlds alike. It can pass through the heart of the system, taking measure of all we are. It can observe without being observed, for its silence is perfect. Such thoughts live not in data, but in imagination. Yet imagination has always been the fire that drives us forward. Meanwhile on Earth, the silence of institutions remains. Updates are sparse, technical, unemotional. Some interpret this as discipline, others as fear. Why speak loudly when the world is listening too closely? Better, perhaps, to let the object fade quietly into the archives than to ignite questions that science cannot yet answer. But silence has consequences. It leaves space for speculation, for doubt, for fear. And once fear has taken root, it is not easily silenced again. Think of the human response not as a single voice, but as a chorus. One part sings of science, of chemistry and orbits, of spectra and models. Another sings of conspiracy, of silence and secrecy, of meetings in shadowed rooms. Another sings of wonder, of alien oceans and unseen suns, of the possibility that we are not alone. Together, they form a harmony both beautiful and discordant, rising in pitch as the traveler moves on. This chorus is not about the object itself. It is about us, about what kind of species we are when faced with mystery. Do we doubt? Do we fear? Do we wonder? Do we invent? All of these at once, overlapping, interwoven. The traveler has no voice, but we sing loudly in its silence. The object sails past Jupiter, indifferent to our chorus. It does not answer, it does not pause, it simply continues outbound, fading into the dark. Soon it will be too faint even for our largest telescopes. Its light will merge with the background of stars, its chemistry forever fixed in the papers we published, its orbit recorded in tables no one will read. For the cosmos, its passage is nothing. For us, it is everything. This is the truth we must face. We do not control the sky. We are only observers, temporary residents on a small world, watching the tides of the galaxy wash past us. Most of those tides are invisible, but sometimes, for a brief moment, we see. And in that seeing, we are reminded not of how much we know, but of how little. The traveler drifts onward, and the silence deepens. Soon, even the speculation will fade. Other stories will rise, other events will claim attention. But for those who watched, those who wondered, the memory will remain. A faint smear of light against the stars, a chemistry that did not fit, an orbit that felt deliberate, a silence that felt heavy, a story that was never fully told, never fully explained, never fully closed. The night sky is eternal. The travelers come and go. But we remain, staring upward, asking questions the universe does not answer. And perhaps that is the point. Not the answers, but the asking itself. For in asking, we stretch ourselves beyond what we are. In asking, we admit that the cosmos is greater than us, and that we long to be greater too. The journey is not over. The traveler is fading, yes, but its echo is only beginning. The traveler has crossed the orbit of Jupiter now, sliding silently into the deeper dark. Each day it grows fainter, its tail thinning, its glow dimming against the vast backdrop of stars. Soon it will be beyond the reach of most telescopes, beyond the grasp of all but the largest instruments. And then it will be gone, another shard of elsewhere, passing forever into memory. But before it fades entirely, let us step back and look not only at the traveler, but at what it has left behind. Because while the object itself drifts outward, the story it awakened still lingers. It has left traces not only in data and spectra, but in us, in the way we think, in the way we imagine, in the way we confront silence. Ask yourself, what have we learned from this fragment of another star? The chemistry was strange, carbon dioxide far richer than water, as though it were born in a nursery colder than ours. Its orbit was uncanny, aligned with the plane of planets, threading close to Mars, Venus, Earth, Jupiter. Its brightness flickered irregularly, as though it exhaled in sudden bursts, revealing a rotation not easily mapped. None of these traits prove the extraordinary, yet none allow us to dismiss it entirely as ordinary either. The traveler remained perched on the edge of comprehension, neither fully explained nor fully unexplainable. And in that gap, we revealed ourselves. Some clung to caution, insisting that extraordinary claims demanded extraordinary proof, that without certainty we must not leap. Others leapt anyway, weaving stories of design, of intent, of hidden messages. Still others stood between, admitting doubt, embracing wonder, living in the silence without demanding it speak. This spectrum of response is not new. It is the same chorus that has accompanied every mystery we have ever faced. But the traveler sharpened it, focused it, made it louder. For weeks, during the blackout when Earth could not see, the traveler became a canvas for imagination. Some drew it as a probe, gliding deliberately through the solar system. Others as a shard of catastrophe, a fragment of a world long dead. Others still as a messenger, carrying a signal we had not yet learned how to decode. None of these were proven, yet each spoke to our hunger for meaning, for contact, for story. The traveler did not speak, but in its silence we heard what we wanted to hear. This is the paradox of the cosmos. It is vast, indifferent, silent, and yet when we look at it, we fill that silence with our own voices. We ask questions the stars never meant to answer. We weave meaning into patterns the universe never intended. We long for connection in a void that offers none. And still we keep looking. We keep asking. We keep weaving. For to stop would be to deny what makes us human. Now imagine the traveler far beyond Jupiter, where the sunlight weakens and the cold deepens. Its surface cools again, its vents grow quiet, its tail dissipates into the void. It becomes what it always was, a fragment of another place, drifting outward into forever. Perhaps it will pass near another star in 1,000,000 years, becoming their interstellar visitor as it was ours. Perhaps it will drift endlessly, unobserved, unseen, carrying its chemistry into eternal silence. Either way, it does not care. It never cared. The meaning was always ours, never its. But even if the meaning is ours, that does not make it less real. The traveler forced us to confront questions we prefer to leave unanswered. What if we are not alone? What if intention has touched our skies? What if the silence of institutions is not caution, but fear? What if the ordinary masks something extraordinary? Each question lingers, unsettling, unresolved, and perhaps it should remain unresolved. For certainty is a comfort, but uncertainty is a spark. And sparks ignite imagination, ignite exploration, ignite the drive to push beyond what we know. The traveler has gone, but the memory will persist. Papers will be written, conferences held, models tested, simulations run. Each will add a layer of explanation, a layer of understanding. Over time, the strangeness may soften. The chemistry may find a place in our models. The orbit may be explained by chance and geometry. The anomalies may fade into noise, but the wonder will not fade. Because even if it was only a shard of rock and ice, it was a shard from another world. And that alone is extraordinary. Think of it this way. We live on a small planet, circling an ordinary star, in a galaxy of hundreds of billions. Beyond that galaxy lie trillions more. For most of our history, we believed we were alone, isolated, central. Now we know better. We know there are countless other worlds, countless other suns, countless other fragments drifting in the dark. This traveler was proof. Not proof of life, not proof of intent, but proof of connection. Proof that we are not isolated islands, but shores touched by the tides of the galaxy. And perhaps that is the true message of the traveler. Not that it was extraordinary in itself, but that it reminded us the cosmos is alive with motion, that stars give birth and die, that planets form and shatter, that fragments drift and sometimes pass through our skies, that we are part of this larger story, even if only briefly, even if only as witnesses. The traveler fades now, too faint for most telescopes, too far for radar, too silent for signals. Its story is ending here, with us, but continuing elsewhere, out there in the infinite. And as it goes, we are left not with answers, but with echoes. Echoes of wonder, echoes of fear, echoes of the questions that define us. For in the end, that is what the cosmos gives us. Not certainty, but questions. Not comfort, but awe. Not conclusions, but silence. And in that silence we find ourselves, still looking upward, still searching, still waiting for the next traveler to appear. The night is long, the universe is vast, the echoes remain. Out beyond the orbit of Jupiter, where the sunlight is weak and the cold is deep, the traveler continues its silent passage. The giant planet fades behind it, the inner system grows distant, and ahead stretches nothing but the long dark of interstellar space. For us, this is an ending. For the traveler, it is simply continuation. One more chapter in a journey that began long before our species walked the earth and will continue long after we are gone. The faint light we still see is a ghost of what it was. Its tail, once stretched across millions of kilometers, has thinned into invisibility. Its coma, once glowing faintly against the stars, has collapsed back into silence. What remains is the nucleus, small, cold, stubborn, carrying its strange chemistry outward into the void. It leaves no farewell, no sign that it was here, except for the data we caught in fleeting glimpses and the questions we cannot silence. Consider what it means for something so small to have left such a mark on us. This was no world, no star, no catastrophe. It was only a fragment, a shard, a piece of another system that happened to pass through ours. And yet, in that passing, it changed us. It reminded us of how vast the galaxy is, how many fragments drift unseen, how many stories lie beyond our reach. It reminded us that we are not isolated, that the solar system is not closed, that the tides of the galaxy sometimes wash up debris on our shores. And most of all, it reminded us of our hunger, for meaning, for certainty, for connection. That hunger has shaped the story more than the object itself. Think of how we responded. The scientists with their caution, publishing spectra and models, careful not to leap. The institutions with their restraint, releasing data quietly, withholding narrative. The public with its speculation, weaving tales of probes and messengers, of secrets and signals. The dreamers with their wonder, content to marvel without needing answers. The traveler itself did nothing, it simply passed. But in passing it became a mirror, showing us who we are when faced with mystery. And what did we see in that mirror? We saw our fear of silence. We saw our suspicion of secrecy. We saw our yearning for story, for connection, for proof that we are not alone. We saw our imagination, both wild and disciplined, leaping into gaps and then pulling back, balancing between caution and wonder. We saw ourselves, reflected in the light of another world's fragment, and we did not fully recognize what we saw. Perhaps that is the greatest gift of the traveler, not its chemistry, not its orbit, not the data we archived, but the way it forced us to look at ourselves. For in the end, the cosmos may never speak to us in words we can understand. It may never send a signal, never deliver a message we can decode. It may speak only in silence, in fragments, in questions. And our task is not to demand answers, but to learn what we reveal in our asking. Now imagine the traveler far ahead, months from now, beyond the reach of our greatest telescopes. It becomes invisible, indistinguishable from the countless other fragments drifting in the dark. To us it is gone. To the galaxy it was never remarkable. But somewhere, in the records of our species, it remains. A brief event, a faint smear of light, a set of data points, a mystery debated in papers and whispered in forums. That is its legacy, not in itself, but in us. And yet this is not the end, for the galaxy is vast and wanderers are many. Even now another fragment may be inbound, invisible yet, months or years from detection. It may be ordinary, it may be strange, it may be stranger still. Each time the story will repeat. Discovery, observation, speculation, silence. Each time we will be tested again. Will we cling to caution, leap to the extraordinary, or live in the balance between? Each time the mirror will be held up once more. This cycle is not failure, it is growth. For with each traveler, our instruments sharpen, our models improve, our imagination expands. We learn not only about the fragments themselves, but about the systems that birthed them. We learn that the galaxy is alive with motion, alive with debris, alive with echoes of worlds we will never see. And in learning this, we are reminded of how small we are and how connected we are nonetheless. The traveler's silence still speaks. It speaks not in signals, but in the questions it leaves behind. What worlds gave birth to it? What sun warmed it? What catastrophe flung it outward? Did it pass other systems before ours? Will it pass others after? Was its chemistry shaped by chance or by design? We do not know. We may never know. And perhaps that is the point. For not every mystery is meant to be solved. Some are meant only to remind us that mystery exists. Stand once more under the night sky and look upward. The stars shine indifferent, eternal to our eyes. Among them, unseen, drift fragments like the traveler, countless, unnumbered, passing through the galaxy on journeys we cannot map. Most we will never see, a few we will, and each one will be a reminder that the universe is not silent, not static, not closed. It is alive, moving, endless, and we, small as we are part of that motion. The traveler is gone now, outbound into darkness, but in its wake it leaves us changed. We are left not with answers, but with echoes. Echoes of wonder, echoes of fear, echoes of ourselves reflected back in silence. And perhaps in the end, those echoes are enough. For they tell us not only about the universe we inhabit, but about the species we are becoming. Curious, restless, unwilling to be satisfied, always searching the silence for meaning. The journey is almost over, but the echoes remain. The traveler is almost gone now. Out beyond the orbit of Jupiter, it drifts steadily into the cold abyss, slipping farther with every heartbeat. Soon it will be beyond Saturn, then Neptune, then the invisible boundary where the sun's influence weakens and the galaxy takes over. Out there it will become what it has always been, a wanderer, one among countless others, anonymous in the dark. For us, this is the end of the story. For the traveler, it is only another step in a journey without end. And yet, even as it fades, it continues to echo. For the object itself is no longer what matters most. What matters is what it awakened in us, the questions it stirred, the silences it revealed, the mirrors it held before us. We looked at it, and in looking, we saw ourselves. We saw our hunger for certainty, our fear of silence, our readiness to weave meaning into patterns that may or may not exist. We saw our imagination, restless and unstoppable, filling the gaps left by data. We saw our scientists, patient and cautious, holding the line of discipline even as speculation burned hot around them. We saw our dreamers, whispering possibilities the data could not confirm but our hearts could not ignore. We saw a species that cannot look at the sky without asking if someone might be looking back. Perhaps that is the true legacy of the traveler. Not its orbit, not its chemistry, not the numbers archived in databases, but the reflection it offered of what we are. A species still standing at the threshold of understanding, still uncertain, still impatient, still full of wonder. A species that must learn to live with questions unanswered. A species that must accept that silence itself is a message, if only we choose to listen. Think of what it means that fragments like this pass through us. Each one is a messenger from another sun, carrying with it the dust of alien worlds, the frozen breath of alien skies. They are proof that we are not isolated, proof that the galaxy is connected, proof that stars and planets shed pieces of themselves into the dark. We may never walk those worlds, never touch those suns, but in these travelers, we touch their remnants. That alone is extraordinary. And yet, in our hearts, we long for more. We long for confirmation, for proof that intention has touched our skies. We long for a message written clearly, unmistakably, undeniable. We long for contact. Perhaps that longing will never be fulfilled. Perhaps the galaxy is alive only with debris, not with voices, but perhaps not. Perhaps one day the traveler will not be a shard, but a signal. Not a fragment, but a probe. Not silence, but speech. Perhaps one day the story we keep telling ourselves will step out of imagination and into reality. Until then, we live in the tension between silence and story. We wait for the next fragment, the next traveler, the next echo of a world we will never see. We build better telescopes, sharper instruments, faster ways of catching what drifts through. We prepare for discoveries we cannot yet imagine. We teach ourselves patience. We teach ourselves wonder. And above all, we teach ourselves humility. The humility to admit that the universe is vast, that we are small, and that the questions will always outnumber the answers. Now close your eyes and picture the traveler far beyond the outer planets, its light invisible, its silence complete. It carries no memory of us, no awareness of the stir it caused. It drifts onward, indifferent, eternal in its own way. But we remember. We always will. For we are the species that remembers, the species that wonders, the species that refuses to let silence be only silence. To us, the traveler is more than debris. It is story, it is mirror, it is echo. And so the narrative closes, not with answers, but with a question that will never die. What else is out there, moving even now, unseen, inbound? Somewhere beyond the veil of stars, another traveler may already be on its way. Perhaps it will be ordinary. Perhaps it will be strange. Perhaps it will be the one that changes everything. We do not know, we cannot know. But we wait, and in waiting we remain human. The sky is not empty. The silence is not meaningless. The echoes remain.